Hey, what's up guys? It's John. Hey, hope you're all doing well. I'm coming at you with another Line 6 POD HD500x video. And in today's video, I wanted to focus in on amp selection. Now the 500X has a lot of amp models on it. My 500X has like 30 amp models on it, I believe. And so that's a lot. And you know, if you're just getting started with one of these things, it can be confusing to know which amp to pick. So I just thought it'd be helpful if I would show you guys some of my go-to amps. So in this video, I want to cover specifically a clean tone, crunch, a couple lead tones, and even a hard rock modern metal rhythm tone. So if that sounds good to you, grab your 500X, follow along, and let's get started. Okay, so to keep things nice and simple for the video, I just pulled up a new tone on my 500X. If you'd like to follow along, you could do the same thing. I happen to have a bunch of new tones in one of my set lists. If you can find one, great. Otherwise, you could always just pick a preset that you don't really care about and just go through each of these blocks using the arrow keys and just turn this first knob all the way counterclockwise until it says none, and you'll eliminate all the effects and amps that were in the preset, and then you should be able to follow along pretty well. For more help on kind of the basics of the 500X, be sure to check out my video about getting started with the 500X. Alright, now let's make our clean tone. Now, what is a clean tone? Basically, it's just the sound of our guitar without any added overdrive or distortion. Lots of styles of music use clean tones, so it's good to be able to know how to create it. Now, there's probably a few amps that I like to use for making clean tones, but the amp that I use the most would be the Fender Twin Reverb. I had said that the 500X has a bunch of amp models, and they're called amp models because Line 6 has spent a lot of work recreating the sounds of actual guitar amps that are on the market. But now, because of like copyright laws and all that, Line 6 doesn't necessarily call those amp models by their actual name. They sort of put the names in code or kind of change the names a little bit, so you kind of gotta be creative to decipher what they're going for. But if we scroll over using the arrow keys until we get to this amp block here, this thing that looks like kind of looks like a suitcase, but this is our amp block. And if we turn this first knob just one click, we get this BF double normal. Now, this is Line 6's model of the Fender Twin Reverb. This is probably the amp that I go to first when I'm making a clean tone. Now, the stock tone right out of the box is pretty quiet, so we're going to need to tweak it a little bit. So the first thing to do is to take this volume knob here, not the master volume, but this channel volume, and just crank it all the way up. And then the drive knob, now this is kind of our fine-tune knob. This drive knob is going to control how much overdrive we add. Now, overdrive is going to get us that like gritty, distorted tone. So we're probably going to want to keep that drive knob a little bit lower. Do keep in mind that the drive knob does affect our volume slightly. So the more overdrive we add, the more volume we're going to get. So it's kind of a balancing act of, how much gain to how much volume. Fortunately, with this Twin Reverb amp model, we can turn the drive up pretty high to be able to get a lot of volume out of it before we get too much overdrive. So I like to have it right around 70%. And let's take a listen to how this sounds. Sounds pretty nice. It's just a straight up electric guitar tone without a bunch of overdrive on it. Now, the reason I turn the drive up pretty high is, for one, to be able to get the most volume out of the amp as we can. But I also like to have a little bit of room to be able to play with dynamics. So if I were to start strumming more intensely, strumming harder, that amp model would actually start to break up a little bit into a little bit of a light overdrive. Now I like that because it gives me the option to be able to vary up my tone. You know, I can strum lightly and just have a nice clean tone, or I can dig in a little bit and, you know, have the amp get a little bit more gnarly sounding. And I just really like that option. Here's it if I kind of dig in a little bit. Now, of course, you may play a style of music where you don't want any kind of overdrive at all on your clean tone. And so in order to accomplish that, I would recommend turning the drive up pretty high, strum the strings hard, you know, probably a little harder than you would normally, and then just slowly start turning the drive knob down little by little and keep strumming, turn it down a little bit, strum some more until the overdrive disappears. And that way you're gonna have the maximum amount of volume out of the amp and eliminate that overdriven tone. Okay, next up, let's make our crunch tone. Now, I'm just gonna save this clean tone just as a preset, just so I can have it as a reference, because I think we're gonna wanna reference this later on in the video. Now, again, I'm gonna scroll over to this amp block, and for my crunch tone, I mean, almost every single time, I go straight for the Vox AC30. So I'm gonna pull that up. Gotta scroll a little ways here. They call this one Class A 30TB. This is our Vox AC30. And I like to take this second knob. This is where we can choose our speaker and cabinet configuration. And I look for the greenbacks. So these are like Celestion greenback speakers. I really like the way this sounds. This is like the same setup that I use in my actual AC30 amp. So what is a crunch tone? It's sort of like a lighter overdrive tone. Not quite full on like heavy metal distortion, but definitely a step up from a clean tone. The AC30 has a lot more overdrive than that twin reverb had, so we kind of got to rein things in a little bit here. So for the channel volume, let's try it out at 70%, and then our drive, let's bring down to like just over 50%. Let's do like 53, and let's check out how this is sounding. That's an awesome tone. I just really love the way the AC30 sounds, just with that kind of light to medium overdrive. It sounds really great. Here's a little bit of advice when you're creating tones and making presets on your 500X. It's going to be important that you find good like volume levels between the two presets. And they're not always going to be the exact same setting. So with our clean tone, because we didn't have a lot of overdrive on it, it was important to have that channel volume all the way up. I also recommend making your clean tone first and setting that volume as loud as you can, and then match all your other presets to it. Because once you start adding all that overdrive, the volume's gonna go up quite a lot. And so you're gonna have to pull those channel volumes down. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna save this crunch tone as a preset, just as our B preset, and let's compare it to our A preset, our clean tone. So here's our clean tone. And then the crunch. Clean. It sounds like the clean tone might be a hair louder than the crunch, but I kind of like it just like this. This is a good starting point. The next step would be to take it to your band and do a band practice, and then really dial in the audio levels and fine-tune things. So far in this video, we've done a clean and a crunch tone, and for a lot of you, that's plenty right there. But for some of us, we do need more. So let's talk about doing a modern metal, hard rock guitar tone. For hard rock and modern metal guitar tones, I generally go for the Mesa Boogie amp model. So I'm just gonna scroll way back in here. Oh, and I think I didn't mention, these amp models are arranged from most clean to most heavy, distorted, insanity. So, you know, at the beginning are more of the cleaner amps, and then they progressively get more intense. So we got to scroll a little bit, get past the Marshalls here, and we're looking for tread plate. Line 6 calls it tread plate because if you look at the Mesa Boogie, like dual rectifiers and triple rectifiers, they have that shiny metal tread plate on the front of the amps. For this guy, this has a ton of overdrive. So let's set our drive to 57 and our channel volume, let's just start it at 50. And let's check out how this sounds. I really love that tone. Mesa Boogie makes some outstanding amplifiers for hard rock and modern metal. Okay, so we've done clean, crunch, and heavy rhythm guitar. Now let's talk about lead tones. Now I want to show you a kind of a light to medium lead tone, and then I want to show you a heavy lead tone. So first off, let's do the light medium-ish lead tone. For this, I'm going to use a Marshall JCM 800 amp model. The JCM 800 isn't quite as gainy as the Mesa Boogie one is, so we have to go back the other way. So we got to go counterclockwise from the tread plate, couple clicks, until we see Brit J800. For this one, let's go 80% with the drive, and we'll go 90 with the volume. Again, these settings are all relative. Set them however you need to. I'm just kind of giving you a nice starting point to build off of. All right, let's check out how the JCM sounds. I'm gonna switch the neck pickup. I think it sounds really good with this amp. This amp works really well for like blues and blues rock kind of playing. Sweetness. The JCM 800 is a super awesome amp for lead tones, but if I do need more, this is where I go for the Engel Fireball. Now, if we're at this Brit J800, if we go clockwise a couple clicks, just one click past that tread plate, line 6 calls this the Angel F-Ball. That's their code for the Engel Fireball. And for the settings, let's just go 80 for the drive and 80 for the volume. Again, this is all relative. Do whatever you want. Close enough. Okay, let's check out how this one sounds. It ups the ante and gives us some real fiery lead tones. Let's check it out. Gonna do a bridge pickup. Sweet. Lots of compression, lots of sustain. Really awesome amp when I really need some like really intense lead tones. Of course, you know, all these amps sound really great if you put like some kind of overdrive pedal in front of them, like a tube screamer, and you can go crazy with all kinds of delays and reverbs to really up these tones. Just wanted to give you a place to start, you know, help you know what amps might sound good in what situations. So hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I've been kind of on a roll with these 500x videos, so be sure to catch them while you can. And until next time, see you guys later.